Madam Representative, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes, thank you for having me, Wyatt.
So I suppose I just want to start out, oftentimes when people take a move and make a decision of this nature, it's because they're looking at their upcoming elections and they see the party that they're currently a part of really isn't favored to win. Is that the case here?
That would be opposite because this switch for me means that I have a greater uphill battle. So it definitely is not a switch to help me win a race. I live and represent a heavily Democrat district.
And so when you look at the issues that are impacting your constituents and the people in your district, why did you make this decision? Because it's something that happens, every once in a while, but it's still not every day that we see someone switching between the two major parties.
So there were some key bills that I voted on. So one being school choice or parent choice. The Democrats voted against it. I support it. My constituents support it. I voted not to defund the police. The Democrats voted to defund the police. My constituents reached out to me and said, we do not want you to vote to defund the police. There was a workforce development bill to help marginalized people with career development skills. The Democrats voted against that bill. My community is in desperate need of workforce development due to the high unemployment. So it's just bill after bill after bill that I had to do some self-reflection and say, okay, if the Democrats are voting against every single thing that supports your community, maybe you're not a Democrat. And so really, it's not about party, it's about policy. And for the things that benefit my community, it's the policy of the Republicans that are helping versus trying to sabotage the community.
And certainly, I mean, what you mentioned there, oftentimes, when you're a Democrat, Democrats feel like they have to believe everything the Democratic Party says. When you're Republican, Republicans feel like you have to believe everything the Republican Party says. But I've been noticing lately kind of almost a slight shift in that you have people that have been on this program before, even like recently I spoke with Representative Nancy Mace. She's known as a very independent thinker, despite being a Republican. She's spoken out and went against her party on some issues. So, I mean, it kind of reminds me of that in this situation. How much, though, from your perspective, and do you think that America could benefit from, having people be more independent thinkers instead of towing the party line? And how could we get to a point where that is the case?
I think most voters, most constituents, most citizens of America are more moderate and centrist. So the parties sometimes are not really reflective of who the people are. And so it is vital for any party to have some moderates or centrists, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. I'll tell you this, going into politics, I knew I was a Democrat. That's all I knew. I never thought about looking at anything else. No one in my family has ever thought about looking at anything else. It wasn't until I got into this seat that the Democrats told me I was a moderate and told me I was a centrist. I had no idea that even was a thing in politics. So once you get into the nuts and bolts, it sounds like you are very much in the nuts and bolts. There are moderates in this public space, but it's not welcomed, at least on the Democrat side.
And just before we conclude, lastly here, in other situations when something like this has occurred, the party that the representative is joining, in some cases, you might have some members who are a bit hesitant. You spent months, sometimes even years in one political party. Now you're joining a new political party. How have you been received by some of your now Republican colleagues?
My response, or their response, has been overwhelmingly positive. The benefit here is, as I was in the General Assembly working side by side with my Republican colleagues for the past 3 years, they have seen me be consistent in what my values are, be consistent in my character, be consistent in my behavior, steadfast in my convictions. So this actually was not a surprise to them. This switch, I didn't tell my family before I did it, but it ended up not being a surprise to them. because every day has been a battle with the Democrats. And so my Republican colleagues understand I was in a battle. My family understands I was in a battle. And it shouldn't be that difficult when you're just trying to help people.
Okay, we will leave it there tonight. That is Georgia State Representative Mesha Mainor. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.